The 2023 NFL season is quickly approaching, so today I want to go over my NFC East predictions for the 2023 NFL season. In this video, I'll be predicting where each team will place in the division for the upcoming season. This takes into account the previous season, moves in free agency and the draft, and the team schedule for this season. I will give a quick explanation for each team, and if you have differentiating opinions, just let me know in the comments and enjoy. So to start off my rankings, I have the Washington Commanders taking 4th in the NFC East. I think this is pretty popular belief as Washington took 4th last year and currently have Sam Howell as their quarterback 1. Washington also had a questionable draft, are in a pretty tough division as well. They will also have a tougher schedule than they did last year too. My main issue with Washington is their offense, as they have always had a revolving door at quarterback the last few years, and I expect the same this year. I just don't see Sam Howell starting all 17 games this year at a high level, or even at an average level. I could be wrong, and maybe he is the future for them at that position. If that's the case, then they could end up winning this division, because I really like their roster as a whole. They have solid weapons that include Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, Curtis Samuel, and Brian Robinson. This should be enough for most quarterbacks to succeed. They were towards the bottom third in the league for pass yards last year, as well as points per game. They were, however, 12th in rushing yards, and I expect that to get better. Washington's defense is what makes them a decent team, even with the lackluster play at quarterback. They have heavily invested in their defensive line the last couple of years in the draft, and this year drafted cornerback out of Mississippi State, Emmanuel Forbes. The Commanders were 3rd in yards per game allowed, trailing only Eagles and 49ers, who are the class of the NFC. They were 4th in pass yards a game and 11th in rush yards a game. Last season, they only had their former number 2 overall pick, Chase Young, for 3 games. I expect him to be healthy and contribute in a big way, paired up with Montez Sweat, Jonathan Allen, and Daron Payne. If Washington was in any other division, there's no doubt I would have them higher than 4th, but in the competitive NFC East and Sam Howell quarterback, I just don't see how I can put them anywhere else on this list. I have them winning 6 to 8 games for the upcoming season. Coming in at 3rd in the NFC East this season, I have the New York Football Giants. The Giants took 3rd last year in this division and actually strengthened their roster this offseason. The Giants added a great tight end in Darren Waller via trade. They extended Daniel Jones and Dexter Lawrence. They exercised Andrew Thomas's 5th-year option, and then they also franchise tagged Saquon Barkley. These are all good moves for this season at least. With their first-round draft pick, they selected cornerback Deonte Banks out of Maryland, which will help them slow down some of the premier receivers of the NFC East, including Terry McLaurin, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and CeeDee Lamb. The Giants were middle of the pack in offensive yards a game last year. They were 4th in rushing and 26th in passing yards a game. They heavily leaned on Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley to run them to wins against a very lackluster schedule that the NFC East played. The receiving core is still poor, though. I expect the pass game to be a bit better this year with the addition of Waller, but I don't see him playing anywhere near 17 games this season. They also drafted Jalen Hyatt in the 3rd round, a receiver out of Tennessee, and I expect him to be involved in their offense, but we'll just have to see how he progresses. After another offseason with Daboll, I do see the team improving. Their defense was 25th in yards per game last season and were middle of the pack in points per game allowed at 21.8. The Giants do, however, have a talented defensive line, which I think contribute to wins in the NFL, with Dexter Lawrence, Kayvon Thibodeau, and Leonard Williams. The New York Giants do have a tougher schedule than they did last year, unfortunately, but I still have them winning 8 to 10 games this year, barring any major injury. This could potentially get them into the playoffs as a 6 or 7 seed, which we saw them do last year, and go on to win in Minneapolis. Now on to 2nd place. I have the Philadelphia Eagles taking 2nd this year in the NFC East, but it's really a coin flip. No team has repeated as NFC East champs since the 2005 Eagles did so. I do think that the Eagles have the best roster in the East, but they also have the hardest schedule in the league. The Eagles are coming off an immaculate season in 2022 where they were NFC champs and Super Bowl runner-ups. They also had the MVP runner-up in Jalen Hurts. The Eagles' offense was 3rd in yards and points per game. They were top 10 in passing and rushing yards against their very well-balanced team. The offense retained every starter except for Isaac Seumalo and Miles Sanders, while I expect them to easily be able to replace those two with either Cam Jurgens or Tyler Steen at guard, and then DeAndre Swift at running back 1. They also have some of the best weapons in the league, which includes A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, and now DeAndre Swift. I would also include Hurts as a weapon himself due to his running ability. Their defense was 2nd in yards per game and 8th in points per game. They're number 1 in pass yards per game at 180. They're an excellent pass rush team, leading the league in sacks by 15. They did, however, lose some key pieces on this defense, including C.J. Gardner-Johnson and Javon Hargrave. Many believe they had one of the best drafts in the NFL, picking up Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith in the first round. Some major differences for this team is losing both their offensive and defensive coordinators. Losing Shane Steichen to the Colts is a bit worrisome, as he was also the play caller for the offense. However, losing their defensive coordinator Jonathan Gannon to the Cardinals seemed a bit mutual, as he had an atrocious second half in the Super Bowl. As well as the players, it wasn't all on Jonathan Gannon, but he didn't make any adjustments. And Gannon kind of made his living against low-end quarterbacks for most of his stint with the Philadelphia Eagles. I still expect Hurts and Sirianni-led team to be even better than they were last year after having experienced a deep playoff run so early in their careers. Although I think they will have a better team, I expect more losses, as they do have a rough schedule and can have some unlucky bounces go their other way. I estimate about 11 to 13 wins for the 2023 season for the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, coming in first place in the NFC East, I have the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys last season were an excellent team, even winning a road playoff game against the Buccaneers. It was just unfortunate that they had a stacked Eagles team in their division. The Cowboys' offense was 11th in yards per game and 4th in points per game. This was a little skewed, however, as Dak did miss a chunk of the season to begin. They ended up cutting Ezekiel Elliott and franchise tagging Tony Pollard, but I only see this as a positive to give Tony Pollard more snaps in the offense. They did trade for Brandon Cooks for a 5th and a 6th round pick. This will certainly help their pass game as long as he is healthy for the season. The Cowboys' defense was 12th in yards a game and 5th in points per game. The Cowboys used their first-round draft pick on defensive tackle Mazi Smith out of Michigan at 26 overall. I like this pick, as I believe you can never go wrong investing in your defensive line, just like the rest of the NFC East does. The Cowboys' most significant move, however, would be firing Kellen Moore, OC, and hiring Brian Schottenheimer as their new offensive coordinator. The Cowboys did well by retaining Dan Quinn, as he is a prime head coaching candidate. If they do, however, come up short again this year, I expect him to be in the running for their next head coaching job next offseason. Overall, the Cowboys have a pretty tough schedule, but I see them winning 11 to 13 games. I know this is the same as what I had for the Eagles, but like I said, this is a coin flip between two very good teams, and Dak usually plays well against the Eagles, so they could potentially have the tiebreaker. So I have the Commanders taking 4th, the Giants 3rd, the Eagles 2nd, and the Cowboys 1st. These are just my personal predictions, so if you guys disagree, just let me know in the comments. Also, let me know what division you guys want to see next, and I'll be sure to do it. Hope you enjoyed, and have an amazing day.